Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Tide Talk. Today we have Dr. Ian Williamson from the UCI Paul Mirage School of Business. So please give him a warm welcome.
That was very warm. I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Carson. So it's great to see everyone. A few of you I've had the opportunity to meet before. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's very honored to come here and spend some time with you today. I was told that my job today was to give you a little bit about my background, what I do at the University of California, Irvine. And I have some slides, and we can definitely go through that. But ultimately, this is about us having a good conversation. So please, at any time, feel free to ask questions, interrupt me. If we get through everything that I have, great. If we don't, because we spend some time on something that was more important to you, excellent. But I do want to just start off with, I am the dean at the Paul Mirage School of Business at the University of California, Irvine, so right down the street. So our business school is, it's a school. It's not a business, but we do run it like a business. So it's a multi-million-dollar institution. The picture you see here are the two buildings that I'm responsible for. I have over 2,500 students, and I have over 300 staff. And then some additional individuals that are part-time workers. So definitely there's a component of running different parts of the school. Well, there's money involved, so you know I have to manage the budget. That's a pretty big deal. I have to make sure that we're bringing in enough money to support all of our activities and then allocate that effectively based on a strategy. Yes, please.
Are you designing like different coursework that the business students are taking?
Definitely have to think about our offering. So what is the curriculum that we want to have? Do I have the right people to deliver the curriculum? Are we delivering it effectively? What are the outcomes associated with that? So definitely that's a big part of it. Any other thoughts? Yes.
Communicating with the other department heads?
Yes, so communicating both within the school about what we're doing to coordinate. So you have double majors and students that want to do other things, but also communicating outside of the school, right? Because part of this is about telling our story so that we have individuals that are supporting us. So right now we are in the middle of a 5-year strategy we've developed to execute around how we'll create students and create learning experiences that really drive technology and capabilities around technology, but also how we expand out the pool of students that we're able to reach and ensure that we're really inclusive in the educational experience that we're providing. Obviously, making sure we have the right resources to execute on that. Some of that is raising money, working with donors, working with companies. Human resource management is a big deal in terms of what we're having to focus on. Do we have the environment that allows everyone to thrive, feel comfortable, and feel accepted within our school? And then, obviously, when we do a good job, my job is to be the biggest cheerleader possible of our school, right? Nobody should sing the praises of our school louder than me. I'm very proud to be a part of our institution. It's a fantastic, globally recognized business school. I am the 12th person to serve as the dean of our institution. We started in 1965. So I've had 11 other individuals that have been building this fantastic foundation. My number one job when it's all said and done is to make sure that number 13, the one that comes after me, has an even better school than when I came. So that's what I do every day. It's a fantastic job. How do you think I got this job?
Did you go to UCI or Ford in the business school or something like that?
I did not go to UCI for my education. So I was hired into this role. So this is actually my first time ever living in California. In fact, the first time I ever visited UCI was when they interviewed me. So it was a very different type of experience. So maybe I'll give you a little bit about my background, how I got here, right? So I'll give you a little bit about my background. And just to tell you, I'm originally from Chicago. Why do I share that? Because, where you're from shapes a lot about who you are. And I grew up in this fantastic city. I don't know if any of you have ever had a chance to visit my wonderful city. Hopefully you've gone in the summer when it looks like this. So, in fact, when I came to interview here, I'd actually gone back to Chicago to visit my family, which still lives there. My mother and father and my brothers are there. And when I left, when I came to visit here, it was February. So I left Chicago. It was -25 when I got on the airplane. And when I landed in California and I got off the plane here in Santa Ana, it was 70 degrees. And I thought to myself, this might be a pretty good job. So that's my home. But that's sort of downtown Chicago. This is actually where I'm from. So I grew up on the south side of the city, maybe 8 miles south of that picture that you just saw from downtown. And when I came home as a baby, I came home in this little first floor apartment with 2 bedrooms and 1 bath. It was my parents, my grandparents, me, and Coffee the dog. So that was where I started. Never in my wildest imaginations would I imagine that I'd be doing what I'm doing or that I'd be living in California or any of that. But what is common across most of this is I was very fortunate in that I had an opportunity to have a world-class education. And so my story really started with the opportunity for me to go to college. I went to high school. My parents had instilled in me that college was going to be something that I needed to do. I didn't exactly know what that was going to lead to. I had an opportunity to go to Miami University of Ohio, which is in about 6 hours away from Chicago. That was really an important decision for me. I decided that I wanted to go away because I grew up and spent my entire life in Chicago. I love Chicago. I knew it very well. But it dawned on me that perhaps there might be something outside of Chicago. So Miami was a complete opposite difference. It was a small college town. The town itself only had 8,000 people. The university had 16,000 people. To give you a sense, my high school was one of the smallest high schools in the city of Chicago. There were high schools in the city that were bigger than the town that I was going to. And so it was surrounded by cornfields. That was a new thing for me. I had never really been surrounded by cornfields. So it was a very, very different experience. It challenged me. It got me out of my comfort zone. I would love to say that it was seamless, but definitely that first year was like, whoa, this is a big deal. This is not what I'm used to. And I had to really deal with that. But I think it prepared me well for other things in my life. So after that experience of going to Miami, well, actually, near the end of that experience, it dawned on me that while the goal was to go to college, actually, you graduate from college, and then you have to do something else. I didn't really know what that was going to be. The goal was to go to college and graduate, and then when I realized, I was like, that's not the end. You got to do something else. I had to spend some time thinking about that. Obviously, the most obvious choice there is to get a job. And I ended up getting a job working for a company that many of you probably have heard of. So I ended up running several Aldis across the state of Indiana. So I had a pretty large business unit that I was responsible for at a pretty young age. I was much younger than many of the people that I was responsible for and hired, but I had the responsibility for running this pretty complex business. It was a fantastic experience for me. It taught me a lot about how to run a company. Probably the most important thing it taught me was that no matter what you're thinking about doing, ultimately it comes down to people. Can you get the right people to do the right thing at the right time? And if that happens, there's a chance that you can be successful. And if you're a for-profit company like Aldi, that means there's a chance you might make money. But if you have the wrong people doing the wrong thing and not at the right time, guaranteed you're not going to make money. And so my job, ultimately, at the end of the day, yes, I had to come up with a strategy as to what we would sell, how we would market it, how would I get it there. All those things are important. Are we managing our money well? But at the end of the day, it boiled down to people. So I became really fascinated with two questions. One, how do you get a job? So my experience coming out of college, it was like, wow, they never talked to you about how to actually do this. And I remember talking to a friend of mine who was adamant about wanting to work for a particular company. It was Procter & Gamble, which is headquartered in Cincinnati. And I said, well, I've never heard of this company, but he was so excited about it. I thought, maybe I'm missing out. Maybe I need to work for Procter & Gamble as well. So I said, well, why do you want to work for Procter & Gamble? He was like, I don't know. It just seems like a cool place. I was like, well, have you ever worked there? No. Do you know anybody who works there? No. Have you ever visited there? No. I was like, that just seems like the craziest thing I've ever heard. You want to go move to this new city that you've never been to work with some people you've never seen, doing something you've never done before, all because it sounded cool. And I was like, that doesn't, how do people make that choice? And then when I was working at Aldi, I had the opportunity and the responsibility to hire people. And I would do all these tests and interviews. So ultimately, after a while, I decided to go back to school because I had these two questions. And I decided to go and get a PhD in management at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. And my goal was, I want to answer these two questions. I want to do research that answers these two questions. And ultimately, I got my degree in that area and decided to become a professor. So I started my career as a professor at the University of Maryland in Washington, D.C. I would have never envisioned I'm a professor at a university. I'm teaching students. This is just amazing. And it was all because of this educational experience I received. Washington, D.C. was amazing and an interesting place. And life was very good. By this time I was married. I had twin daughters. I was doing life. You would have thought this was going to be it. And one thing I observed was a lot of my students that I taught were not from the United States. I would speak with them, and they were having conversations about things that I never heard of, places I didn't even know existed. I became really curious. And ultimately, after thinking about it some more, I said, you know, I want to challenge myself. I want to challenge myself to see if I can learn something else. One of the reasons I became an educator is that I like learning new things. And I thought, well, you know, this is something I don't understand. So I decided to apply for jobs outside the United States. Now, I should tell you, at that time, I didn't even have a passport. So I applied all around the world to places, many of which all of which I'd never been to before, and ultimately was very fortunate to receive a job in Melbourne, Australia. So I packed up my family and we moved to Melbourne, Australia. I was a professor at the University of Melbourne, where I worked at the Melbourne Business School. I thought I might do it for a year or two. I ended up being there for 10 years. Ultimately, I became the associate dean for that school. And in that role, I did a lot of work where I worked all across Southeast Asia, working with organizations, companies, universities to develop educational programs. I was actually invited to move to Indonesia, where I worked at Institute of Technology Bandung. That's the university there in the bottom right-hand corner, where I helped them develop an entrepreneurship program. And so we were helping develop entrepreneurship classes for Indonesian students who are excited about starting businesses in this amazing, rapidly growing society and community. I thought that might be it, and I was invited to become the Pro-Vice Chancellor and Dean of the Victoria University of Wellington in New Zealand. So I left Indonesia and moved to New Zealand. I was responsible for leading our business school there. This is my former building. It was literally right across the street from the Capitol, right here. And as a result of that, we did a lot of work with pretty much all the levels of government, including the Prime Minister, on a regular basis. And of course, as you can see from the pictures, Wellington's a pretty beautiful place. So I love that as well. And yes, it was right down the street from the company that made Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and all those things for all of those who are interested in that. And in fact, many of the locations where they filmed were right around that town. I thought that might be it. And then this university called the University of California, Irvine called me and asked if I'd be interested in being their dean of their business school. And so I've been very fortunate to be doing this now for about 3 years. In addition to sort of the work that I've done with universities, I do a lot of work where I do consulting work with companies all around the world, primarily helping them understand this question of how do I attract, retain, and develop a great workforce? How do I get talented people like you to want to come work with me? And how do I keep you? And how do I develop you? And these are just a sample of the companies I've worked with. Some of them you may have heard of, some of them maybe not. And I've done this work in 6 different continents. Unfortunately, I haven't had that consulting gig in Antarctica yet. That's the last one. We'll see if I ever get there. So that's a little bit about me. Any questions about that? Yes, please.
What did you major in college?
So I started off as an econ major. That was the plan. I had no idea what economics was, to be frank. I did that because I met someone who had a job. It seemed like it was a nice job. And I asked them, what are you majoring in? They said economics. I said, all right, fine, I'll do that. And then I got to my junior year, and I realized, well, economics is certainly very important. It was not that interesting to me. And as it turns out, I was taking a class called management, specifically organizational behavior, something I'd never heard of before. And it turns out I loved it and changed my major to organizational behavior. And in fact, my PhD is in organizational behavior. Other questions? Yes, please.
What was your favorite company that you worked for and why?
Oh, wow. I've enjoyed pretty much all of these. I'm trying to think what's maybe one of the cooler ones that I've worked with. What's common across a lot of these companies is the work that I was doing with them was at a time when they were dealing with a major disruption. So something had happened and their broader business model was being just fundamentally changed, and they needed to think about how they were going to do something different. And I'll give 2 examples. So I was working with Nestle in Malaysia, and Nestle is the largest food company in Malaysia. They're doing very well, and in 1 year, a competitor that had never been in the market from Indonesia came in and took 50% of their market share in their largest segment in 1 year. And it's because they had a better understanding of the local preferences, and they were able to be a lot more nimble than Nestle. And it really required this very successful company to realize, well, we got to change. We got to do something different. And so I worked with them over a course of 2 years to help them think about how they can redesign their workforce to be able to be more responsive to the needs of the population. That was an interesting one. And the other one I'll share with you is the Reserve Bank. So I did work with the leadership of the Reserve Bank of New Zealand, similar to the Reserve Bank of the United States. What was fascinating about that work is I started that work in January of 2020. What do you think happened shortly after that? COVID. And so I was working with the senior leaders of the Reserve Bank of New Zealand as they were trying to figure out how to keep the country open. Obviously, the decisions they make had a huge impact on whether or not people had money, could pay their bills. And so that was, unfortunately, it was interesting, but I'd rather we not have had that situation. I'm going to give you a little bit of thought about what have I learned thus far. And it's thus far because I'm not done. I'm still learning every day. I want to take on new and better things. But these are at least a few things that when I look at things that really had a positive impact on my life, it kind of comes back to these three areas. One, I was able to do things because I had awareness that there was an opportunity. And, if you don't know, you don't do, right? And so I was very fortunate. I have situations where people kind of expose me to things that make me aware of opportunities. That's nice. To know that there's something possible is one thing. But, the other thing was, did we have access to somebody who's doing it? Because to be quite honest, if somebody tells you about this great opportunity, but you never meet a person doing it, it's sort of like a mythology. You never really believe it's something that you can do. But if you can meet a person, talk to a person who's actually doing it, it becomes a lot more real. You get a lot more confidence. And so I've been very fortunate, and I've had access to people who are willing to talk to me about what they do. And then the last thing is the ambition. Knowing that there's something there and that is real is one thing, but being able to have the ambition or the confidence to go out and pursue it, that's a whole other thing. And, having people that support you and that drive you around, it's okay to have ambition, to do something different, is very, very critical. So I'll give you just some thoughts on this. So let's talk about awareness. What would I want you to be aware of, right? You're very fortunate in that you are at a great high school, in a great community, in an unbelievable state. I don't know if you know this or not, but this is by far the innovation capital of the country. And some would say one of the most innovative communities in the world. So why do I say that? Well, one thing that you use to measure innovation is a patent. Does everybody know what a patent is? You ever heard of a patent? So if you have an idea, right, you formally document that idea and you create a patent, and that gives you exclusive rights to use that idea, which can be quite lucrative if it's a good idea. California has created more patents in 2021 than any other state in the United States. This is truly the place where the latest and greatest is created. And you sort of have a front row seat to that. And that's good if it comes to thinking about getting a job, because the jobs that are growing are the jobs that are happening around these ideas that are being created here. And because you're at a school like this, which has a strong emphasis on entrepreneurship and technology, you're getting the behind the scenes look at what this actually is. I'm just emphasizing something that you already know, because the jobs you're going to be going into are going to be things like this. None of these things on this board existed when I was your age. We had no idea what fintech was. Artificial intelligence was definitively a comic book story. We did not have electric cars. To launch a rocket was something only a government can do, but you, I gather, have had Virgin come talk to you about their rocket launching. And certainly this notion that we could 3D print, you guys have that in your high school. These are all the jobs that we're crying for talent in, and you're getting the behind-the-scenes look at. So you're aware of the opportunity. The second thing I would say then, build on that. Take advantage of the access. Talk to people about what they do. I got this invitation, and I immediately said yes. Turns out people love to talk to other people about what they do, especially if they like it, and I love what I do. And why is that so important? Well, over the course of my life, each of those opportunities that came about, they came about because I had access to someone who had done it or who was thinking about doing it, and so it became less scary for me, a lot more real. I had a person I could ask for advice. That's clearly a dream, wouldn't you say? There's no reality in that situation. But I had to at least have the confidence to say, well, what was it like when you lived out of the country? Or what do you think about me applying for a job? And hopefully they don't look at me like I'm crazy. And they say, well, this is what you do. And you follow up on that. And then finally, this issue around ambition. And this isn't ambition in terms of conquering. It's more like ambition for being able to set goals that really inspire you more than anybody else. And one thing that I've realized is that all the things that I've been able to do, it all boiled down to I received a world-class education. So I'm going to leave you with two things, just to kind of talk to you about some things that we're doing at our school that are designed to support you and your cohort. We run a program around financial literacy called LifeVest at our business school. And this is targeted towards high school students. And it's designed to help you understand how to manage money. Why is that important? Well, everything that you might think about doing at some point in time is going to require you to pay something. Money is not an outcome. It is definitely not. It is a means by which you achieve something that you're trying to do. And so managing it allows you to achieve that outcome. And so if you're interested in gaining greater literacy around that, please consider looking up that program. We take students from all across Orange County. And then I mentioned to you how important it is for us to be realizing that we're in California and that this is the technology epicenter of this country. We as a business school have a big priority on developing the future leaders that will support the growth of the technology sector, particularly here in California and specifically Orange County. We need the talent to support the growth of these companies. That allows us to have these great quality of life that we have around us. And so we've developed a program called our Future Leaders Initiative that is designed to encourage students like yourself to consider and pursue careers that are business careers in technology spaces. So yes, we're going to have programmers and coders and engineers, but we also need the business people to help sell those products, manage those products, understand the markets. So I'm going to show you a quick video about that program, and then I'll take any questions that you have.
Our premise is simple. The program is built around 3 ideas: awareness, access, and ambition. First and foremost, how can we get them to understand that their future will be shaped by things like fintech, augmented reality, virtual reality, machine learning, artificial intelligence? We wanted to provide them with role models, examples, physical things they can touch, people they can talk to that have had tremendous success in these spaces, to normalize it for them. But equally important is that the individuals that they see, the role models they see, they can relate to. They come from their communities, they come from their cultures. They can understand the experiences that these students are going through. It's not just about understanding this as an opportunity. See what success looks like. And then let's set up a plan for you about the steps you need to take, not just to graduate from high school, not just to go to college, but over the next 10 years of your life. You know, if you've seen this finished product, this fantastic entrepreneur, this fantastic business leader, let's go back and say they were sitting in your seat today. And let's think about what are the steps we're going to work with you to get you to that point and beyond. You give them the means by which they can unleash the potential they have inside themselves. And that's the future leaders we're trying to create.
So this is a summer program, as if Life Fest. Life Fest, we bring students on campus for 5 days. You stay in the dorms. It gives you sort of a college experience. And then with this particular program, it's a weekend program. It happens on Saturdays over the course of a summer, and it's designed to just expose you to career opportunities in this space. So we do that for high school students. The last one, Future Leaders Initiative, is for high school students and students that are in their first year of community college. And please reach out and apply on our website if you're interested. So that's my talk. What questions do you have?
I know you traveled a lot for your jobs. How did you overcome the language barriers, especially in teaching? You
know, I would love to say that I have a gift in the linguistics area. I do not. Language is the one Achilles heel I have not been able to overcome. Fortunately, I've been able to work in environments where English would have been the language we use for class, but I've also had quite a few situations where I've had to actually work real-time with translators. And, you know, I found that generated a discipline in my thinking and my presenting that I lacked prior. But you learn how to communicate. The other thing that I've had to pick up on in terms of just living in different countries and working in different settings is that the nonverbals really matter. Oftentimes in an environment where you come from the same environment, you don't have to think about that. You can do anything you like, but being very thoughtful about the way you present yourself, even through the nonverbals that you engage in, actually goes a very long way.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Mr. Ian Williamson, for your Tide Talk. Please give him a big round of applause.
My pleasure. Good luck with all the applications. Good luck with everything. I know you're going to end up at a great school, and hopefully that'll be mine.